to Indus News, live from Islamabad. I'm Naila Shuja, and these are the headlines. Afghanistan's President Ashraf Ghani has blamed the country's deteriorating security on a sudden decision by the United States to withdraw its troops. Speaking at the parliament, Ghani said that he had warned Washington that the pullout would have consequences. He accused the Taliban of keeping ties with terrorist groups and stepping up attacks on women and civil society activists. Rejecting Ghani's accusations, the Taliban said the lies and accusations cannot prolong Ghani's government. Pakistan's foreign minister says being a founding member of the OIC, Pakistan is committed to playing a positive role for peace in the Middle East. Meeting a delegation of the Arab Parliament in Islamabad, Shah Mahmood Qureshi said peace in the Middle East is just a link to the resolve of the Palestinian issue. He added that the negotiation is the only resolution of all conflicts. Fifteen soldiers have been killed and 6 more are missing after a terrorist attack in southwest Niger. The Defense Ministry said the soldiers were first ambushed and later hit by an improvised explosive device. The ministry said its forces have launched a search operation to apprehend the terrorists. Brazil has reported 464 COVID-19 deaths and more than 20,000 infections in the past 24 hours as the tally approaches 20 million. Meanwhile, Pakistan has registered 40 deaths and over 4,800 cases overnight. Globally, the death toll has surpassed 4.2 million with more than 198 million infections. And in the Tokyo Olympics, Indonesia's pair of Grecia Poli and Apriyani Rahayu has won the women's doubles gold in badminton. Meanwhile, China clinched gold in men's gymnastic rings and women's 87-kilogram weightlifting events. On day 10 of the Games, China is leading with 28 gold medals, followed by the United States with 20 and Japan on 17. For more news and details, stay tuned. We'll be back after a short break. Welcome back. Afghanistan's President Ashraf Ghani has blamed the country's deteriorating security on a sudden decision by the United States to withdraw its troops. Ghani said that he had warned Washington that the pullout would have consequences. Addressing a special session of parliament, Afghan President Ashraf Ghani said the Taliban would not move towards peace unless the worsening security situation was curbed. He accused the Taliban of keeping ties with terrorist groups and stepping up attacks on women and civil society activists. Rejecting Ghani's accusations, the Taliban said lies and accusations cannot prolong Ghani's government. In a tweet, spokesperson Zabiullah Mujahid warned that the president's time has run out. This comes as the Taliban have intensified their attacks across the country and also hit Herat and Kandahar airports. Besides, Russia and Uzbekistan have begun joint military drills near the Afghan border. Russian media reported that 1,500 troops would take part in the 5-day exercises that began at the Termez military site in Uzbekistan. For more on this, we are joined by Mr. Arshad Yousafzai, an analyst speaking to us from Peshawar. Mr. Yousafzai, thank you so much for joining us. Now, the fighting in Afghanistan is getting worse by the hour. Why do you think the Taliban have started attacking airports, and whether these attacks will hinder the exit of foreign troops?
Well, the attacks are increasing because, one of the fact is that the Taliban had a plan that as soon as the foreign troops leave Afghanistan, they will start taking as many cities and as swiftly as possible. So that is why we are seeing attacks all around the country now. The reason they are attacking airports, especially the attacks yesterday on airports in Herat and Kandahar, one of the reasons behind this is The Taliban believe that it's a retaliation. They are linking it as a retaliation to the bombardment that they suffered day before. The reason these attacks on the airport are because they believe that the Shindan airport in Herat in particular was used to attack Taliban convoys in Guzara and Adrat. Now, I don't think that this will delay the withdrawal of the foreign troops, because the foreign troops are committed to leave. And as soon as the September 11 date approaches, it is quite sure that all the troops will leave Afghanistan. And by then, the Taliban believe that they would have captured many areas compared to they are now, which is almost half the country. So they will be in a better position to dictate their terms as they did before the start of Doha Agreement or Doha talks.
Mr. Yousafzai, the United Kingdom has already voiced their soft approval of working with the Taliban if they would come into power. Do you believe that the Taliban can take over Afghanistan, or do the Afghan forces possess the capacity to fight back?
Well, it's not just the UK at the moment. Other European countries too are starting to soften their image or their attraction towards the Taliban. But one thing is for sure: the Taliban have been capturing areas that are far from the major cities, that are not well guarded at the moment. Particularly border areas, small towns or villages or districts that are far from the city centers. So we haven't seen the worst of the fighting yet. The Afghan troops haven't put up any big fight yet. I fear that in the future, when just like it's happening in Helmand and Herat now, so I believe that the fighting will escalate in the future.
Mr. Yousafzai, now experts say that President Ashraf Ghani's corruption is the reason behind the rapid Taliban gains. They accuse the Ghani government of receiving funds for ghost soldiers. How much of that is true?
The corruption is one of the major issues. The people of Afghanistan are not happy with the current government. And they believe that one of the reasons that the Ghani government administration is asking the foreign troops not to leave, the Ghani government would want to have an extended period of taking out more corruption money as much as possible for them, and to extend their regime to get more benefits from the Western countries. So I believe it is agreeable to greater extent that corruption is one of the major issues of the current government. And, things were shown not exactly as they were. The preparation of the Afghan troops, it was not as was shown. It was propagated by the Afghan politicians in their books or on social media. It was just a hype that they had created. But in reality, things were worse than that.
Mr. Arshad Yousafzai, thank you so much for speaking to Indus News. Now moving on, Pakistan's foreign minister says being a founding member of the OIC, Pakistan is committed to playing a positive role for the peace in the Middle East. Shah Mahmood Qureshi said this during a meeting with a delegation of the Arab parliamentarians in Islamabad. Qureshi said peace in the Middle East is linked to just resolve of the Palestinian issue, adding that negotiation is the only resolution of all conflicts. He said there is a need for the unequivocal condemnation by the international community of India's illegal annexation of Kashmir. Qureshi says that the Arab Parliament and the Arab states have an important role to play. He shared the broader outlines of Islamabad's geo-economic preferences with a delegation led by Adil bin Abdul Rahman. He stressed that Pakistan believes that negotiations are the best way to achieve sustainable political solutions. Fifteen soldiers have been killed and 6 more are missing after a terrorist attack in southwest Niger. The Defense Ministry says that the soldiers were ambushed and later targeted with an improvised explosive device. They said 7 soldiers are wounded in the attack on a supply mission in Torodi commune. The ministry says that its forces have launched a search operation to apprehend the terrorists. Niger is a regular target for militant groups that are growing stronger despite the deployment of thousands of regional, Western, and UN troops. In Yemen, government forces claim to have killed at least 40 Houthi fighters in the last 2 days in the Marib province. The military said that its forces and tribesmen pushed back rebels' assault on the provincial capital's mountainous areas. The Yemeni military said that the government forces seized control of a mountain in the south of the city. He said Arab coalition's warplanes also conducted several aid raids in Marib. It said the fighting is also ongoing in the provinces of Laj, Yuf, and Al-Bayda. Meanwhile, Houthis have not commented on the incident so far. The United States has joined Israel and Britain in accusing Iran of last week's deadly attack on an oil tanker off the coast of Oman. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said Iran attacked the Israeli-operated tanker using explosive drones. Earlier, Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett said Tel Aviv will retaliate against what he says is Iranian aggression. Iran, however, has denied involvement in the incident, calling the allegations a blame game. The U.S. military says that its Navy is assisting the tanker, which is believed to be hit by a drone strike. Brazil has reported 464 COVID-19 deaths and more than 20,000 infections in the past 24 hours, as its tally approaches 20 million. Globally, the death toll has surpassed 4.2 million, with more than 198 million infections. More in this report. The Indian Delta variant continues to fuel the deadliest coronavirus surge across the world. The U.S.'s top infectious disease expert, Dr. Anthony Fauci, warned that more pain and suffering are on the horizon as COVID-19 cases climb again. A day after it recorded the most new daily cases since the start of the pandemic, Florida has broken a record for current COVID-19 hospitalizations. While over in Europe, protests over government's COVID-19 rules and restrictions continue. In the German capital of Berlin, several hundred people have been arrested by the police over protest against the newly imposed curbs.
There were several hundred, then several thousand. There were suddenly 2,000 in the western part of the city, and we were quite fast to react to that. And then here close to the Victory column, a new situation started building up. First, there were only around 100 people, and then suddenly there were over 1,000. But we were able to stop them so that they weren't able to get together and overcome the ban.
Britain has offered COVID-19 booster vaccines to 32 million people from early next month. Pfizer and Moderna have reportedly raised the prices of their jabs in their latest European Union supply contracts. In China, several cities have rolled out mass testings of millions of people yet again and imposed fresh travel restrictions. This comes as China battles to contain the country's most widespread coronavirus outbreak in months.
We carried out measures including taking temperatures, checking negative nucleic acid certificates and green health QR codes, and registration in all communities and villages in Yansun Township, where the communities under control are located, to stop the entry of outsiders. We lowered the attendance rate in office buildings to 50%. During the lockdown, residents in Yansun Township are not allowed to leave Beijing in principle.
Meanwhile, in Australia, a snap 3-day lockdown in Brisbane and some neighbouring regions has been extended for another week. Hundreds of Army personnel have begun patrolling Sydney to help enforce COVID-19 lockdown rules there. Pakistan has reported 40 deaths from COVID-19 over the past 24 hours, with more than 4,800 daily infections. The health ministry says the nationwide death toll has risen to 23,462. According to the health authorities, the positivity rate of cases has risen to 8.61%. The ministry noted that the number of active cases has surpassed 73,000, of which more than 3,400 are in critical condition. It said the caseload has crossed 1,039,000, while over 943,000 people have recovered. The National Command and Operations Center is set to discuss the surge in coronavirus cases in a meeting today. Educational institutions across the country have reopened today amid COVID-19's worsening fourth wave driven by the Delta variant. Pakistan has reiterated that it has no favorites in Afghanistan. Talking to media, a Foreign Office spokesperson said the Afghans need to decide about their future themselves. Zahid Hafiz Chaudhry said Pakistan will continue to play a constructive role in the Afghan peace process. He said the foreign minister's recent remarks on Afghanistan have been misquoted and twisted. The spokesperson said Shah Mahmood Qureshi clearly spoke about consensus within and outside Afghanistan against terrorism. Earlier, the spokesperson also strongly condemned former Canadian minister's unwarranted remarks regarding Islamabad's role in the Afghan peace process. Chaudhary said Islamabad has asked the Canadian authorities to take steps to address the motivated and malicious smear campaign. It's now time for a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. South Korea says it has made no decision on joint military exercises with the United States. This comes after North Korea warned Seoul that the annual drills will undermine their bilateral ties. Korean Defense Ministry says Seoul and Washington are in talks over the drills. Talking to reporters, a ministry spokesperson said the timing and method of the exercises are yet to be finalized. He said the allies will decide after considering the issue of supporting diplomatic efforts for lasting peace on the Korean peninsula. Seoul's unification ministry says the drills must not be a source of military tension in any case. In Lebanon's coastal town of Khalde, unidentified gunmen have killed at least 2 people in an attack on the funeral of a Hezbollah commander who was killed a day earlier. Hezbollah said that the attack on mourners was a planned ambush. The military warned it would fire at anyone carrying weapons on the roads. The military said that one of its soldiers was also injured in the shooting. Lebanese media reported that the violence is rooted in a personal vendetta. Pakistan's Navy and Pakistan Maritime Security Agency have conducted a joint operation south of Karachi to rescue the crew of a sunken cargo ship. Officials say 15 out of the 18 crew members have been rescued. Authorities said search operations are underway to find the missing crew members. They add that the sinking ship, due to the strong winds and tides, the ship was transporting cargo from India to Somalia carrying Syrian crew members. U.S. senators have introduced a sweeping $1 trillion bipartisan legislation on infrastructure. The massive package is a top priority of President Joe Biden and will be the largest infrastructure investment in decades. Around 24 negotiators, including Republican Senator Rob Portman, spearheaded the 2,700-page bill. It will invest in roads, bridges, ports, high-speed internet, water, and other critical infrastructure. Senators termed the bill an important step in modernizing the outdated infrastructure of the country. The 100-member chamber is expected to pass legislation this week. If passed, the bill will go to the House of Representatives before President Biden signs it into law. In the United States, 7 new wildfires have erupted, taking the total number of active fires across the country to 91. Officials say the raging flames have burned through more than 1.8 million acres so far. Over 22,000 fighters and incident management teams are engaged in battling the blazes. The bootleg fire in the state of Oregon has been contained by 74%. However, it is not expected to be fully controlled until October. Meanwhile, California's largest fire, Dixie, has grown around 245,000 acres in size and is 32% contained. Authorities say some 38,000 fires have already scorched more than 3 million acres this year. The monsoon moisture moving into the region is expected to stomp out some fires and quench the dry vegetation and soil. The death toll from wildfires in Turkey has risen to 8 as firefighters battled for a 5th day to contain the blazes still raging in the coastal resort towns. The health minister said that 2 more people have died in the southern town of Manavgat. Ankara says it has not excluded the possibility of arson and sabotage in the part of the Kurdistan Workers' Party, which is outlawed in the country. Meanwhile, thousands of people have been evacuated as wildfires wreak havoc in Greece, Italy, and Spain. 5 people have been wounded after wildfires devastated parts of Italy. In western Greece, 5 villages have been evacuated and 8 people hospitalized with burns and respiratory problems. European stocks have climbed, tracking positive sentiment around the world as a deal speculation and earnings drove significant share price moves. London's FTSE and Italy's FTSE MIB are leading the gains, rising nearly 1%. Frankfurt's DAX and the Pan-European Stock 600 have edged up marginally. The CAC 40 in Paris has added over 0.5%. Earlier Asian stocks also registered gains. In the Tokyo Olympics, Indonesia and Puerto Rico have secured their first gold medals on the 10th day of the Games. China is leading the medal standings with 27 golds, followed by the United States with 20 and hosts Japan on 17. More on the Games in this report. Day 10 of the Games is scheduled to feature a total of 22 gold medal events. Argentina dominated Germany to make it to the semis in women's hockey for the first time since 2012. They now face a showdown with either Australia or India in the Final Four on Wednesday. Puerto Rico secured its first gold after Jasmine Camacho Quinn won the women's 100-meter hurdles. Matildis Tengolu of Greece won the men's long jump gold, besting Cuba's Juan Miguel Enchivara and Mikel Masso. Meanwhile, Dutch women Sifan Hassan brilliantly recovered from a fall to advance into the semifinals of the 1,500-meter heat. The 28-year-old will have to recover quickly, as she is also scheduled to run in the 5,000-meter final today. It's now time to take a look at the weather updates from around the world. For the latest news updates, you can follow us on our social media at Indus.News.